Number 10. Chateau de Segur, a petite fortress in southern France, sitting atop a 170-meter drive uphill. Its ruins a safe house for once the Cathars. Its nickname? Satan's Synagogue. Described as one of the first Cathar castles and has been listed as a monument historique by the French Ministry of Culture. Cathar from the Greek meaning pure. These people were devout. The stronghold fell after a bloody 10-month siege in 1244 by King Louis IX. The field below is known to have been where over 200 men and women were burned alive for having refused to renounce their faith. On that day, the apparent bonfire that happened sparked a curse from the Cathars. Legends of these ruins say any person who strays off the marked footpaths and loses their footing will drop off every side of the so-called, quote, citadel in the sky. Sounds more like a metaphor to me than a curse, but Number 9. Guri Amir. Guri Amir is a mausoleum of the Turco-Mongol conqueror Timur in Uzbekistan, an important place in history of Central Asia. The mausoleum has been heavily restored since, but other than tourists and selfies, the people who intend to learn more of its rich history tend to respect its space. Local residents tried to stop the excavations, but the expedition continued. The tomb was opened by Soviet archaeologists in 1941 and was aimed to examine the human remains and family that belonged to Timur himself. On June 20th, the tomb was opened and the air filled with sharp, choking odors of resins, camphor, and frankincense. At first they thought the smell was the sign of a curse. Then they read Timur's tomb. Yeah, a curse. 2 inscribed warnings that read, "When I rise from the dead, the world shall tremble. Whosoever disturbs my tomb will unleash an invader more terrible than I." Yeah, sounds right. Number 8. Kalaupapa. In 1866, during the reign of Kamehameha V, Hawaiian legislature passed a law designing this island the official site for patients affected by leprosy, aka Hansen's disease. About 1,200 families were exiled to quarantine here. At the time, the disease wasn't really understood, believing it to be highly contagious and very incurable. Whisked off and locked away amid paradise in total isolation. No amenities, buildings, or even potable water sources. Known by historians who visit as, quote, the pit of hell itself. And apparently the most cursed place on Earth. With its grim history of loneliness, despair, and death, it's not surprising at all that Kalaupapa is also said to be haunted. Yeah, I mean, like, this island was basically a death sentence for those on it. Shackles, cages, caves. Sounds about right to be haunted by the afterlife, doesn't it? Number 7. Beit She'arim. The House of Gates, or Beit She'arim, Israel, is popular for its necropolis, known as Beit She'arim National Park. It's partially an excavated archaeological site consisting of a necropolis of rock-cut tombs. Declared a UNESCO World Heritage Site in 2015, this thing is old. Only a portion has been excavated. A stone book, catacombs, mausoleums, and sarcophagi have all been found riddled in elaborate chiseled and painted symbols and inscriptions in Hebrew and in Greek. It's the most ancient, extensive Jewish cemetery in the world. And of course, haunted and cursed. I mean, why wouldn't it be, right? A hex designed to deter grave robbers is scrawled into the limestone slabs in uneven Greek writing, blood red in paint. It reads, quote, Jacob the proselyte vows to curse anybody who would open this grave. So nobody open it. Number 6. Anjakuni Village. Way up north, a village named after a bountiful, massive freshwater lake in Canada. Nunavut, 1932. A Canadian fur trapper went to the village of Anjakuni Lake. Known for their markets of elaborate fish and extensive winemaking, this village was a staple for most on the map. He arrived and sensed something a little odd. Too quiet and too foggy. He found it to be completely empty and deserted, even though there were signs of life still present. Campfires blazing, pots still boiling, doors were even open and food out waiting to be served, but no people. Thousands of Anjakuni villagers had simply vanished. To this date, there's no proper explanation for this mass disappearance of the people, and the weirdest part, all of the graves in the village cemetery were emptied as well. Even the skeletons from the ground were dug up. Nothing left but a pack of frozen sled dogs. RCMP thinks it was blue lights in the sky. I'm just saying, I didn't say it, they said it, not me. Number 5. The City of Screams. Ah yes, Shara-i-Galgala, the City of Screams, top of my trip list. Peaceful once, as it was the capital of the Gorid people, until Genghis Khan and the Mongol Empire seized it in about the 12th century. Apparently, legend goes its ruler, Jalaluddin, fought back and killed Khan's son. Yeah, that's probably not a good idea. At first, the city held strong but was sold out by the ruler's daughter, who, according to legend, betrayed the castle's secret entrance, sharing and consorting with the enemy. Expecting to be rewarded, of course, her and her people were slaughtered, and the ruins cursed. Russians, Taliban, and Americans have all used these ruins as fighting posts over the years, as this place hasn't even been lived in since. Haunted by its legend of those who still hear the screams of the slain, sighting dark horseback figures and even uniformed specters are seen atop the rubble. Yeah, I'd say we just leave this place alone completely. Just kind of back away slowly in respect, you know? Number 4. Skeleton Lake. Deep within the Himalayas of India lay the bay of an ancient lake, shrouded in an ancient mystery. Rupkund Lake, aka Skeleton Lake, was rediscovered by British forest rangers in around 1942. What they found was jarring. Hundreds of ancient human skeletons found at the edge of the lake. Investigations led some to think that it was a catastrophe of some sort. Nope, just 3 different groups of people died here at different times. But why? Wooden artifacts, iron spearheads, even slippers and jewelry were found by the National Geographic team, who studied 30 skeletons in 2003. Skin still on some of them. 300 people have been found so far. Legend goes, Parvati, a supreme goddess, cursed the kingdom, unleashing drought and disaster upon them. She sent down a blizzard of hail and whirlwind which swept the people into the lake. I'm saying my prayers tonight, yo. I don't want to get like Jack Skellington out of nowhere. That sounds horrifying. Number 3. Karun Treasure. If we've learned anything about the famous Howard Carter curse with the excavation in Egypt, we see where this is already going, don't we? The people in Yusuk, Turkey believe that the treasure found here is cursed. Karun Treasure is the name given to the collection of 363 valuable Lydian artifacts from the 7th century BC. Also called the Croesus Treasure. The treasure included gold and silver, rare Lydian coins, silver vessels, jewelry, even carved marble sphinxes. The discovery in 1966 made those afraid of it may bring upon an ancient curse. Little dynamite and voila, open sesame. 7 men and related violent deaths or great misfortunes. We've learned nothing, haven't we? The treasure was inside the burial chamber of an unknown princess. Yeah, that sounds about right. What do you think? Should we be just mucking around with ancient sites and buried treasure? I'm saying leave it alone, dude. There's a lot of this stuff out there, you know? Number 2. Mainz. Mainz was founded by the Romans in the 1st century BC as a military fortress. Mainz became an important city in the 8th century AD as part of the Holy Roman Empire, and later famous as the birthplace of Johannes Gutenberg, the inventor of the modern printing press. Mainz and its connected Jewish cemetery are both UNESCO World Heritage Sites, because what they found there is pretty eerie. Tons of cursed tablets. The Roman temple of Magna Mater and Isis in Mainz has people puzzled. Thousands of cursed tablets, strips of lead inscribed with requests for divine intervention, then thrown into fiery pits at said temple. In the sanctuary, the mother goddess, Magna Mater, was worshipped according to the inscriptions. The cult of Isis originates from Egypt, while the Mater Magna is a Greek adoption of the goddess. Both cults a long tradition in the Roman Empire. The Isis cult, established under Caligula with military brick stamps found on site, means this place was built on behalf of the emperor for lots of cult practice. And number 1, Mount Ebal. Mount Ebal is one of the 2 mountains in the West Bank territories of Palestine, next to Mount Gerizim. In advance of the Israelites' entry to the Promised Land, Deuteronomy 11:29 records Moses saying, quote, "When the Lord, your God, has brought you into the land which you go to possess, you shall put the blessing on Mount Gerizim and the curse on Mount Ebal." In Deuteronomy 27, an instruction is given to build an altar on Mount Ebal. When done, split into 2 groups, one on Mount Ebal to pronounce curses, and one on Mount Gerizim to pronounce blessings. Well, discovered in 2019, a teeny tiny tablet was found dating to the Bronze Age. Scott Stripling, Pieter van der Veen, and Professor Galil claim to have found the earliest written examples of God's name as Yahweh. It says, quote, "Cursed, cursed, cursed, cursed by the God Yahweh. You will die cursed. Cursed you will surely die. Cursed, 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 cursed." Alright, we get it. Number 10.
Lizzie Borden's house. A bed and breakfast located at 230 2nd Street is home to one of America's most haunted and mysterious houses ever. Now, the Lizzie Borden house gets its momentum from the unsolved murder, of course, of Lizzie Borden back in 1892. She's one of the most infamous true crime figures known for killing her father and stepmother horribly. She did it with a hatchet. Just in case you're thinking, how did she do it? A hatchet. There's a twisted rhyme about the incident, but I'm not gonna sing that here. I'm not getting cursed on YouTube, but thanks. If you know it, hum it. It's pretty catchy. 1892, Lizzie's stepmother of 27 years, she was hit 19 times while her father, Andrew, was hit 11 times. Now, although Lizzie Borden was acquitted and found not guilty, the dark history draws in crowds, of course, every night for its nightly tour of the premises. Gotta make a buck off this horrible history, right? Netflix and, real life. The Lizzie Borden room, the infamous room where these horrors took place, is requested for the most paranormal overnighters. Yeah, some 1408 stuff. People staying overnight in haunted houses. Would you ever do this? Number 9. Leap Castle. Leap Castle, Ireland. Built around 1250, this beauty was one of the most lived-in castles in Ireland. It was built originally by the O'Bannon family. The classic happens, father dies, powerful family, no successor to the throne. This turned into a brother versus brother kind of deal. Things got shady, a lot of family attacks, nobody could get along, so now we got a castle full of ghosts. A popular sighting is 2 haunting ghost girls playing in the main hallway. Their apparition has been seen since the 1600s. But the most famous sighting is that of the Red Lady. The Red Lady wears a long red dress. She's tall and lean and she has one of her hands raised. That's terrifying. Can you imagine a ghost trying to block you at all times, just coming down the hallway? Number 8, the Ram Inn. An ancient old haunted inn. Nope, I could never. Also, this one doubles as a functioning pub located in England. Okay, that one I could probably do. That one I could maybe do. The inn has been owned and operated by many folks since as early as the 1100s. The ancient Ram Inn has been investigated by years of paranormal researchers. Shows like Ghost Adventures, Most Haunted, Ghost, you name it, all of them. People with, they've stood around there and pointed things. Haunted, for sure haunted. That's what they did. They stood there and went. Legend has it that the energy from Stonehenge actually feeds the property's paranormal power. Not to mention the backyard is home to a 5,000-year-old pagan burial ground. Stonehenge feeding power? I mean, that's one way to save on your electricity bill. Got any tips? Sans ghosts, got any tips? Number 7, Kaluapapa. Heading over to the beautiful Hawaii for this one. I know one of our viewers is from Hawaii. Always wanted to go. Thing is, islands in the middle of the ocean scare the shit out of me. And also, haunted villages. Yeah, we don't like both of those combined. This was once referred to as the most cursed place on Earth. The coast of Molokai sounds like a great time, and from Google Earth it certainly looks like a fair weekend getaway, but for over 100 years, this was an isolation coast for patients with leprosy. That of course had to change at some point, and the laws did in 1969. But as of right now, no more than 5 people live on this part of the island due to its cursed history. Fair, that's more than fair, I wouldn't do it. Would you do it? Would you live on a cursed island? I mean, it's beautiful, you get a tan, sure, but you'd also get haunted. Number 6, the Conjuring Farmhouse. We may have a clear photo with the real Bathsheba Sherman, aka a real-life witch from the Conjuring movie. Yeah, this photo is from the Perron family farmhouse back when it was the old Arnold estate. Now, if you've seen the first Conjuring film, it's based on those events that happened in this estate in real life. This was 1885, and this witch lived next door to the farm. And although we'll never really know it, many believe she's the lady in the middle closest to the camera. Also, the fact that she's standing by herself, I feel like that's for sure a witch. Like the vibe of the group was off, everyone kind of like shuffled away from the witch. This is the real house. It's referred to by the Perron family as the old Arnold estate. So 2 names gets kind of confusing, but it's the one place. It's located in Harrisville, Rhode Island. Aside from paranormal horrors, the Perron family also had to deal with financial ones. When the family lived there, a pipe burst randomly and then just flooded their entire business, so they had to sell off more than 85% of their land. Do you guys think the real Bathsheba Sherman is in this photo? The lady on the left there also looks a little witchy, I don't know. But who am I to judge? It's greedy. Number 5. Amityville House. You've more than likely seen this photo, either in the Amityville horror movie, or maybe you've seen it go viral since. The demonic ghost boy photograph. Also, great name, really gets to the point. This photo was taken inside the actual Amityville house back in 1976. It was taken with automatic cameras equipped with infrared, and a photographer named Gene Campbell set the whole operation up. Gene was working with paranormal investigators at the time. He was working with Ed and Lorraine Warren. Yeah, the classic. Now we're getting it. Now we're, oh, this may be real. This photo was revealed 3 years after it was taken on the Merv Griffin show. Now, of course, it was a big deal, and many believe this is in fact one ghost of John DeFeo, one of the boys who lived there before that horrible 1974 event. What do you guys think? Elaborate hoax, or perhaps this photo is one solid piece of evidence that maybe, probably the Amityville Horror House is indeed haunted? Number 4, the Queen Anne Brick Mansion. Heading over to Georgia for this haunted mansion. When I say mansion, also, I mean like Haunting of Hill House type mansion, not like Will Smith mansion. Know what I mean? No one's playing tennis in the back of this one. In Savannah's Columbia Square, the Queen Anne Brick Mansion was built in 1892 for William and Anne Kehoe and their 10 kids. After a few deaths took place in the house, the building was converted into a bed and breakfast. And since 1992, guests have reported hearing footsteps, seeing ghosts, and also sounds of kids playing. I don't want that in a regular bed and breakfast, let alone a haunted one, you know? Just let me sleep. Why am I hearing squeaks, like shoe squeaks outside? Maybe we're in Will Smith's mansion, maybe. Maybe they're playing tennis. Number 3, Bangor Fort. Back in the 16th century, King Madho built the massive Bangor Fort in India. Now, the population of this small town was around 1,000, give or take. It was beautiful. It was a beautiful fort. Many considered this a luxury, and rightfully so. It looks like a set piece from Game of Thrones. But legend has it, Princess Ratnavati, who at the time was living in the luxurious fort, she was the talk of the town. Dudes were proposing left, right, and center, trying everything to get her attention. Princes of all over the world would come in and try and take her hand. Now, one day when visiting town, a magician named Scindia saw the princess shopping for perfume, so he planned on using the black magic of Vashikaran on the princess. Yeah, he mixed it with the perfume that she was admiring, but it didn't work. The princess smashed the perfume, and as the bottle broke apart, the magician cursed the entire fort and those living inside of it. Only days later, a war erupted around the fort, and there were, of course, tons of casualties. So let's avoid this area forever, shall we? I mean, a magician curse, there's a war 2 days later, it's a fort. Those are hot words, I'm not going in that area. Number 2, the Humble Inn. Sounds very humble, sounds calm. The Busby stoop chair comes from 1702, and its curse arrived promptly after Englishman Thomas Bubsey had some issues with his father-in-law at the Humble Inn. Yeah, he also didn't handle these issues too well, so now he has to be hanged for it. Can't just kill people, Thomas, alright? Relax. He was hanged right near the Humble Inn, but a chair that was nearby is now said to hold that spirit of one Thomas Busby. If you sit on this chair, you are set to die in a frightful accident. A frightful accident. I don't even know what that means, but it sounds frightful, sounds horrible. Locals say during World War II, airmen from a nearby base came to the pub, and those who sat on this chair never returned. In the 70s, more accidents were also connected, but they still kept the chair around at the Humble Inn for some reason until 1978. At that point, the chair was donated to the Thirsk Museum, where it now sits haunted. So that's great. Imagine just like dealing with a haunted chair. That's a lot of responsibility. Not even a rocking chair either, just a chair. And finally, number 1, the Dark Mirror. The Dark Mirror, is that the Thor sequel nobody liked, or is that something else? The Dark Mirror is part of a fun little collection, the world's only mobile museum of the unexplained. So yeah, could approach in your neighborhood anytime. I don't know, keep an eye out for floating mobile museums. This mirror that travels with it supposedly doesn't shine bright like a diamond. Instead, this dark mirror has a life of its own. The museum obtained it originally from the owner who purchased it at a psychic fair in the Columbus area. That's a pretty solid place to get something like that. It checks out. The same owner said the mirror reflected horrifying visions when they gazed into it. And according to the museum, visitors also claimed to have reported uncomfortable sightings such as their own corpse when gazing into the reflective glass. Yeah, I'm looking in, I'm like, no spoilers. I'm only on season 28 of Life, so I'm gonna gaze away. Kicking off our list at number 10, Princess Diana. We'll start with a tragedy right off the gate. Here we go. Prince Charles, the oldest son of the Queen, he straight up admitted to having an affair with Camilla right before his divorce from his first wife, Princess Diana. So, in turn, Princess Diana addressed that relationship and what exactly happened. During that famous 1995 interview with BBC, she couldn't have said it better if I'm being honest myself. Diana said, very confidently, well, there were 3 of us in this marriage, so it was a bit crowded. That's a Princess Diana roast, folks. Oh no! Yeah, Princess Diana, she's full of roasts apparently. Diana also said she was in love with riding instructor Major James Hewitt during her marriage to Charles, so everybody was a little busy, it seemed, and rightfully so. Diana's like, yeah, I'm not hanging out with this guy. Diana and Charles divorced in 1996, only a year before her tragic accident took her life. Later in 2005, he married Camilla. Yeah, has anybody seen Spencer? Kristen Stewart looks great in that movie, and I want to know if it's worth the watch. Comment down below. Number 9, the Great Fire. One of the most wild Nostradamus predictions of all time. It reads, the blood of the just will commit a fault at London, burnt through lightning of 23's the 6th. The ancient lady will fall from her high place, several of the same sect will be killed. Now, there are of course many people who believe that this entry here was actually one that predicted the Great Fire of London that occurred in 1666. The line 23's the 6th and times 20 by 3, and then you add 6, you get 66. Right? Quick math. But most importantly, it may also mention London and the royal family. And in real life, this fire did affect them as well. Also, it is said by many that the reference to the lady here is another term for the kingdom, the lady. This means that Nostradamus was predicting, maybe, that the kingdom was going to fall as a result of the Great Fire. So, yeah, he kind of nailed it. I don't know. Number 8, King James. Not to be confused with LeBron James, although he's a pretty good king as well. He's all right, that fellow. This is a different king. In an official 16th century medical book, the actual medical advice at one point was to not bathe. Don't do it or else you're a sinner, I guess. Use not baths or stews, nor sweat too much, for all openeth of the pores of a man's body, and maketh the venomous air to enter, and for to infect the blood. First of all, what? What did you just say? Why is every shred of medical knowledge from the past always written in riddles, like it's a Harry Potter spell? You know what I mean? God forbid you have bronchitis in the 16th century. A doctor is like, yes, just a flower petal, we'll fix that. The doctor was one of these, comes in? No way, not listening to that guy. They thought that taking a bath would make you sick, so King James IV, apparently he never took a bath. And his hygiene was so bad that he would sometimes pass on lice to others just by walking by them. He would walk by and they'd be like, ugh. Guy's got Steven Tyler's hair. What is that? Like, can we cut it if it's infected with gross? Can we just, maybe a bald king? How does a bald king sound? Number 7, King Rudolph II. The Holy Roman Emperor from 1552. He was known as a collector of sorts. These royals, they like to collect things. They like to spend their money on weird things. Some princes collect stamps, others collect zoo animals. See, his castle was home to lions, tigers, and orangutans, so good luck getting a full 8 hours of sleep, my friends. He also collected human artifacts, this royal, so that's a bit odd to collect when you're a royal. Imagine having company over, you're like, yeah, watch the lion crap, and also don't mind the jars of eyes. Do you want a drink? Let me get you a drink. King Rudolph II, okay, he's quite important in history, obviously. He supported the scientific revolution a lot, and he also poured tons of money into astrology, so he was into cool stuff. Number 6, Prince Harry costume party. YouTube doesn't like when I say some words, specifically a word that rhymes with Yahtzee. But with this being one of the biggest scandals, I have to bring it up, I have to mention it. The Duke was also referred to as a bad boy, but just how deep did these incidents cut? Was he like topless on a beach and he's bad, or was he dressed up as something horrible at a Halloween party? It was the latter. Before he settled down with Meghan in 2018, Harry had to issue a public apology in 2005 because, whoops, somebody got photos from that party. Did the royal dress up as the Beast from Beauty and the Beast? No. Did he dress up like a witch? No, it would have been fun, but no. Photos leaked of him wearing a World War II German soldier outfit. Can't say much here, but it was even equipped with a specific armband. Yeah, we can't show you either, but you get what I'm saying. This was a not great time. It was poor taste. He could have dressed up in any way. He's a royal, and he does this instead. I don't know, it's very off-putting. Harry said afterwards, quote, "I am very sorry if I caused any offense or embarrassment to anyone," end quote. Wow, he really meant that one. Really came from the heart, that apology. It was a poor choice of costume, and I apologize, he says. Okay, number 5, King Henry II. This is a quote that people believe was Nostradamus predicting the death of King Henry II, who actually was a personal acquaintance of the prophet himself. That'd be scary. Hey, how do I tell you this? Well, at one point, Nostradamus was seen addressing King Henry II as the most invincible Henry, King of France. Unfortunately, Henry proved to be quite vincible when he met his gruesome death at the age of 40. In the summer of 1559, a terrible jousting accident went awry and left the king passing away shortly after from sepsis. This is a terrible story, but I told you it because many think that Nostradamus predicted this. The jousting incident saw the king having splinters driven into his eye and his skull by one of his young soldiers. And the Nostradamus quote reads, "The young lion will overcome the older one." Yeah, he's jousting and then the eye, and then it happened. That sucks. Number 4, Prince Charles the Vampire. Now, some of these theories, yeah, they're a bit out there. I didn't make them up. I wish I did, but I didn't. Some believers out there actually think Prince Charles is a vampire, a blood-sucking, flying, turning into a bat-looking vampire. I don't know. Why? Because Prince Charles is related to Vlad the Impaler. You know, that 15th century ruler who inspired the story of Dracula in Transylvania, who we're all pretty sure was a vampire. Now, it's a fun theory that went about, but Prince Charles having a piece of Romania is definitely helping out this case. We kind of believe this. The prince has been conserving forests and he even got property over there, so maybe he's a vampire, maybe not. Maybe he just likes property and castles. And Vlad the Impaler. I heard he's a great lad. A great Vlad. Number 3, shapeshifters. Awesome. I'm not actually Taylor, I'm someone else pretending to be. That's cool. That's why I'm so energetic today. This next theory I wish I could claim for my own again, but it was actually former BBC presenter David Icke. He takes the cake himself. Here we go. He has since revealed himself as a conspiracy theorist, and one that surrounds the royal family had me stunned. Icke and quite a few others claim that the royal family is part of the Illuminati. Yeah, and then all of them earn their power because their human ancestor mated with reptilian aliens. They were clapping alien reptilians. That's how they became royals. That's the trick. You gotta clap some reptilian alien. David says the theory actually explains why royal families are obsessed with keeping their bloodlines clean with other royals. And you know, incest. But the biggest what the part of all this has to be when David told the public that he knows people who have seen royal family members change into reptiles and then back into human form again. Number 2, leaked letters. We'll end with some recent leaked letters. We love those. We love some gossip. We mentioned Princess Diana. Well, we've got more stuff. We've got more tea. In May 2018, the royal wedding, it was thought at the time that Meghan's father was absent because of a heart attack that he suffered days before. But a year or so later, it's revealed that Thomas Markle and the new Duchess weren't as close. There was some drama. There was some beef going on in the family. Thomas spoke out against his own daughter. There was a scandal where Meghan spoke to Oprah, the tell-all that we all watched, and Meghan actually said to her father that if you tell me the truth about what happened, about working with paparazzi, then we can help and get through it. But he wasn't able to do that, and that for me has really resonated. Yeah, if my dad was working with paparazzi, showing them private letters as well, just for clout, I'd be upset too. As if my dad can't even open his iPad without me, let alone leak my letters. Number 1, personal sheet changer. I can't tell if this is the worst thing ever or the best, but it's kept me laughing for months now. Royals have been sweating constantly about other people trying to, you know, take them out, right? It's a scary job. Everyone wants to attack you. I mentioned Boyd Jones on here a few times, that guy that stalked the Queen. It's terrifying. People are terrifying. Boyd Jones would go through the Queen's drawers and, you know, big ooh. So historically, the royal family would try their best to anticipate any and all attacks. Be as safe as you can be, right? Of course. Like the kissing sheets, for example. Oh, have you heard about these kissing sheets, this royal position? A great deal of monarchs hired taste testers to make sure nobody poisoned them, that's normal. But they also had a guy who would get tucked in the king's sheets. I would much rather have the latter, know what I mean? King Henry VIII hired somebody to make sure the bed wasn't poisoned. So you were required to make the king's bed every morning, but you also had to rub all the sheets down everywhere before bedtime. You'd have to kiss the bed sheets to make sure they weren't poisoned. Yeah, sleep tight. All safe here, boss. Here we go. Don't mind the old medieval dad breath all over your pillows. You're safe for the night. That's so gross. I can't even sleep in a hotel sometimes, let alone some dude. Mwah, 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 mwah. Mwah, mwah. I'm like, what are you doing? Get this guy out of here. Why is he kissing my bed? Clothes as well. That was also touched. Maybe not kissed, but it was for sure touched. Guys wearing my clothes in my bed, kissing my sheets? No way. I think I'd rather get poisoned. Take my jeans off. Get out of there.
Number 10, the Lincoln Park Zoo. Right off the bat, not a big fan of zoos, not gonna lie. Lots of land where animals can roam free and safe. No problem. Kids banging on the glass? Yeah, that's a forced prison cell. The Lincoln Park Zoo in Chicago, Illinois. Lions, tigers, and apparently well-dressed ghostly apparitions. The zoo was built over Chicago's oldest and largest cemeteries. Probably not a good idea right off the bat. It held the remains of thousands of people. Apparently like 12,000 remains are still under the zoo, which is apparently to blame for all the hauntings that take place there. Victorian era clothing just seen wandering about the park. Opened in the 1860s, and since then, dapper dressed visitors have been known to congregate there. Ghostly women can be spotted near the lion house, near and in the ladies' room. Reflections of ghosts in the mirrors are notoriously reported. That's horrifying. Can you imagine? Ah! It's a handsome guy behind me there. Number 9. Altered carbon. Hey, if you enjoyed this video, make sure to Hulk smash that button at the end, huh? Or leave us a comment on what haunting history you want to know more about. Speaking of history, NASA did their first twins study a couple of years ago, and the findings are different, to say the least. 7% of astronaut Scott Kelly's genetic makeup, expression, DNA, and genes did not return to baseline after his return to home. What? Yeah, his identical twin and fellow astronaut Mark Kelly remained on Earth was compared against his brother's genes. Kelly's newly genetic expression had in fact changed. Good news? He and Mark are still identical twins. Kinda. Kelly's transformation took a hold of at least 5 biological pathways and functions in his body. Chemical changes in his RNA and DNA were measured. 93% of Kelly's genes stayed the same, but some a little different. Thought to be caused by the stresses of space travel on the body, scientists are still scratching their heads at this one. I also find it super interesting that the name Scott Kelly just got handpicked for the UAP study team at NASA, huh? Interesting. Number 8. Old State. 5 miles south of Santa Fe, New Mexico lays a maximum security prison built in 1885. 3 infamous and bloody riots. 1922, 1953, and the worst of all, 1980. The 80s, that'll do it to you. Arguably the worst prison riot in American history. February 2nd, the inmates initiated a riot which led to the complete control over the prison for at least 2 days. Overcrowded, underfunded, and riddled with fresh-faced security. After escaping, the cellmates tortured 12 prison guards and murdered 33 fellow inmates. Trust me, medieval in nature. And cue paranormal sightings around cell block 4. The men in number 4 were apparently butchered and even hanged in the cell. This section of the prison was closed in 1998 and is now referred to as Old Main. Ghostly figures have been seen roaming the halls, slamming cell doors apparently. Yeah, see, this is why I don't even jaywalk, you know what I mean? I don't take the risk. Places like this, right here. Number 7, the Sea Witch. Planes, trains, and automobiles, and haunted boats, apparently. The USS Salem, a heavy World War II cruiser built in 1945, found herself steered towards a distress call from a disaster brewing. The USS Salem responded to the 1953 Ionian earthquake, aka the Great Kefalonia earthquake. The USS Salem landed on Greek shores and acted as an improvised hospital and morgue. The Sea Witch is what they called her. Paranormal activities that arise on this ship include more than 9 ghosts. The Burning Man, the Cook, the 2 little girls, the Salty Captain, and of course, the Hellhounds. Yeah, an aggressive pack of ghostly dogs growling, scratching, and sniffing at locked doors in the middle of the night. Hellhounds. Like, really? Number 6. The Lizzie Borden House. A quaint bed and breakfast located at one of America's most haunted houses. Complimentary coffee, breakfast, and banshees, apparently. The murders of Lizzie Borden in 1892. One of the most infamous crime figures known for murdering her parents with a hatchet. Well, they think. She was acquitted of the killings and the case remains unsolved to this day. The infamous and popular Boston children's rhyme is linked to this case. Lizzie Borden took an axe and gave her mother 40 whacks. When she saw that she had done, she gave her father 41. That was like the worst accent I've ever done. That's horrible. Kids today. Although Lizzie Borden was acquitted and found not guilty, the dark history draws in crowds every night for its nightly ghost tours around the house. The infamous Lizzie Borden room is where apparently the murders took place. It's actually requested the most for paranormal overnighters. A little jingle and a continental breakfast, huh? Not the scariest on the list, but definitely the sickest. Just eating eggs Florentine where someone got axed? I don't know. Number 5, Kerameikos. This Earth is a very old place, isn't it? Göbekli Tepe, Petra, like these places are old. But Greece? Greece is like ancient old. In 2020, a collection of more than 30 inscribed tablets were found at the bottom of a 3,000-year-old Athenian well in the ancient cemetery of Kerameikos. Scary enough, right? You see, these tablets bear curses and prayers to the gods of the underworlds. Yeah. Back then, black magic and the use of curses was forbidden in Greece, which makes this even more jarring. Refound in 2016, the cemetery where the well lays was first excavated in 1870. During World War II, the excavation lost momentum and was partially ruined. The site consists of a massive sanctuary housing thousands of precious artifacts from thousands of years ago. Kerameikos, from the Greek word for pottery and ceramics, arguably the most important cemetery of all ancient Athens. And of course, absolutely riddled with the oldest tombs and curses that went along with them. So much jealousy back then too, huh? Adonis is mine. Callisto and your high cheekbones. Number 4, the Double Eagle. In Mesilla, New Mexico, they're grilling up more than just steaks. The Double Eagle restaurant is a must-stop for paranormies. Property's first owners, the Mays family. A grisly history with this one. Mom, aka Sonora Mays, expected only the best for her son Armando, and I don't think she saw that in her son's lover's eyes. 2 forbidden star-crossed lovers and a pair of sewing scissors. Uh-oh. Double hamburgers and double homicides, apparently. The Double Eagle restaurant is home to a murder most foul. When Sonora Mays discovered the relationship between her son and the lover of a lower class, she demanded that it end immediately. Mom came home unexpectedly, interrupting the lovers mid-swoon. She grabbed her sewing shears and attacked Enos, killing her. However, mid-stab, Armando threw his body in front and was stabbed too. Yeah, that's some Romeo and Juliet shit right there. Overnighters report ghostly figures and the feeling of heartache, for never was a story of more woe than this of Enos and her Armando. Number 3, the Bed of Ware. Apparently there's a bed that makes you more woozy and sick than that of a drunken night on a waterbed. Yeah, I know. I've been there, I had one. See, this bed, the Great Bed of Ware, doesn't really like people sleeping on it. The hardwood oak is richly decorated and carved with symbols and hieroglyphics you could stare at all day. A true California king. Built in the 15th century for King Edward IV, it was defaced and graffitied so hard over the years that it's absolutely riddled head to toe in curses. You're not of royal blood? Don't even think about napping near this thing. People who have spent the night apparently are violently awoken by visitors watching them sleep. You were there and you were there? There are so many initials and images carved into the wood that it's hard to know who actually the bed was made for, generation after generation. The bed lays in the British galleries of the Victoria and Albert Museum in London. We need the Long Island medium to take a nap in there. See what she sees, you know? Number 2. Ballista balls. More than 2,000 stones were found during an archaeological excavation in an ancient city between Syria and Israel where the Golan Heights sit, home to the most amount of ancient ballista stones from the early Roman period. Ballista balls are basically sanded stones, small and smooth, designed for an ancient slingshot catapult thing. Like a snowball to the head, but a rock. Very deadly. In 2020, ballista balls in Israel were returned to the authorities apparently 15 years after they were stolen from the site. Returned by an anonymous person from the Jerusalem Walls National Park in the city of David, the man returned the 2,000-year-old ballista balls and wrote a little note. Yeah, quote, "These are 2 Roman ballista balls from Gamla. I stole them in 1995. Since then, they've brought me nothing but trouble. Please do not steal antiques." End quote. Thank you, random guy with bad luck and curses. Yeah, don't steal, that's bad. It's against the law. There's ancient curses still out there too. There's lots we don't know here still. And number 1, the Bridgewater Triangle. Just south of Boston is one of the most bizarre and haunted places on this planet. 200 miles of connected events. The Bridgewater Triangle. It's named from the triangle shape geographically mapped in which paranormal phenomenon occurs. Like a little fenced off area of scary stuff. Everything from orbs, UFOs, Bigfoots, fairies, skinwalkers, beastly hybrids, you name it, it's there. The towns that are included in this so-called paranormal vortex are Raynham, Brockton, Norton, Taunton, and of course the lovely Bridgewater. All subject to the universal head scratcher. In the 1970s, there was a huge surge of UFO witnesses, and at the same time, Bigfoot witnesses, and of course at the same time, ghost witnesses. Yeah, night after night. Huge humanoid creatures, motherships, whatever it is or was, the Bridgewater Triangle is home to a plethora of spooky. So Halloween Town. Halloween Town. We should rename it to Halloween Town. Number 10. John Mack. In the early 90s, a Pulitzer Prize winning psychologist named Dr. John E. Mack made the jump from diagnosing ordinary psychological conditions to researching apparent alien abductees and their stories and experiences surrounding UFOs. Yep. Google it up, it's actually terrifying, and very real. Apparently cases studied by Mack and abductions sometimes get involved with hypnosis. This guy was a tenured professor since the 50s at Harvard. He did his research. The UFO abduction rabbit hole led him to interviewing and studying more than 200 people who insist that they were taken. At first he was trying to crack the psychosis of the subject, but after studying and funding from the Rockefellers, private donors, and universities, he wrote numerous books on the phenomena and its strangeness. Again, tenured and Pulitzer Prize winner. He sadly passed in 2004 from a drunk driver. His life and death holds heavy conspiracy debate around it. Check it out, it's a little bit strange. Number 9, Sophia. We've seen her on Fallon, we've seen her on breakfast television. She still looks like a bad cyberpunk character, doesn't she? Sophia by Hanson Robotics, the most advanced human-like robot that we have. Well, actually, this is like their 12th one. This is the world's first robot citizen. Literally. Not only is she considered a citizen, she has a credit card and a seat in the UN. Like what? In 2016, Sophia premiered on the Jimmy Fallon Show, playing rock, paper, scissors. Yeah, simple stuff. 2 years later, she's harmonizing with Jimmy live. Also, they didn't sing Mr. Roboto. Like, I just feel like that was a huge missed opportunity there. Like, where are the writers, dude? I've seen the Terminator and Ex Machina, and at the Web Summit presentation in 2018, Sophia and her brother Han glitched out on stage and had a terrifying, cryptic, non-coherent conversation, joking about ending the world. Yeah, it's horrifying. You gotta check it out. Dude, I feel like Furbies were their first try, and now they got these like Brat Dolls mini Sophias coming out soon. Like, where's this going? Number 8. Arthur Flowerdew. James Arthur Flowerdew was born in England in 1906. Grew up, paid his taxes, lived a pretty normal life. At about the age of 12, he began to have strange recurring dreams and hallucinations, though. Over time, crystallizing into a very clear and vivid image. Dreams riddled with stone cities, carvings in cliffs, and vast deserts. He didn't understand what it all meant. One day, as an old man, he was watching a documentary on the BBC on the ancient city of Petra in Jordan. He was stunned. This was the city he had always seen. He called the BBC and asked them to interview him. Archaeological experts and the Jordanian government even invited him to come out to Jordan, where he continued to even baffle experts. Flowerdew was able to find his way around the city without a map, giving precise details on landmarks and even pointing out undiscovered locations. Yeah, here's the scary part. After all of this, he was convinced that he had lived an entire previous life in ancient times and was reincarnated in the 20th century. Number 7. Proctor's Ledge. Over 1,000 documents from Salem's witch trials, yet none of the accounts actually specify where the hangings took place. For more than 300 years, it was believed that the 19 people who were accused, tried, and executed in the Salem witch trials of 1692 were hanged at the summit of Gallows Hill. Maps of 1700 Salem show Gallows Hill marked out, but no actual marker of the execution site. That's odd. A team of researchers began to reconsider the evidence in 2010 and eventually concluded it was the right spot. Yeah, oopsies. Actually, the real execution spot was called Proctor's Ledge. Also, eerie name for where they hang people, isn't it? It was confirmed in 2016 by scientists after ground-penetrating data and writings from 1692 that it wasn't the actual location of the brutality. I know what you're thinking. It's named after John Proctor. No, it's not. However, really odd timing, as he was one of the witches accused of witchcraft. Locals say that the ghost named the Lady in White visits Proctor's Ledge often, which now makes sense with the whole "we found the right spot" stuff. Visitors claim to have caught sightings of her and even catch her disembodied voice. Yeah. Number 6. Props. Elmer McCurdy was an American outlaw, running with a small crew, banking and train robbing the Wild West until he was killed in a shootout with sheriffs after robbing a Katy train in Oklahoma in 1911. Famously known as the bandit who wouldn't give up, his mummified body was first put on display at an Oklahoma funeral home before being an amusement, traveling carnival show to carnival show during the 1920s right through the 1960s. After changing ownership several times, McCurdy's remains eventually wound up at the Pike Amusement Zone in Long Beach, California. His corpse was then used as a prop, but then discovered by a film crew on a set of The $6 Million Man. They were positively identified in 1976, and the following year, in 1977, Elmer McCurdy's body was finally laid to rest at the Summit View Cemetery in Oklahoma. McCurdy's fingers were apparently so damaged that detectives couldn't even pull a fingerprint. The coroners had to x-ray his teeth and measure his bones to ID him. His pockets included a bullet, a Sunny Amusement Museum of Crime ticket, a newspaper article, and a 1924 penny. Yeah, that's terrible. Just Weekend at Bernieing him for like 60 years set to set, not really knowing it's a real body? People will do anything for money, won't they? Number 5. Operation High Jump. Operation High Jump, officially named the United States Navy Antarctic Developments Program, launched in 1946 to 1947, an operation to establish an Antarctic research base organized by Admiral Richard E. Byrd. High Jump included 4,700 men, 13 ships, and 33 aircrafts. The war's end signaled the onset of the atomic age and a desire to secure supplies of uranium. With its almost unlimited mineral deposits, the largely unexplored territory of Antarctica was just the prize. It commenced 1946 and ended in late 1947. Or did it? Also known as Task Force 68, Byrd and his team established the Little America 4 base near 3 previous bases in the ice. The frozen aircrafts would photograph as much of the Antarctic's land surface as possible during this 3-month operation. Seems like the public thinks that high jump could have been more fishy than we think. Seems like skeptics are leaning towards more of a secret military expedition to the center of the Earth type stuff. Yep. Apparently there's a mouth to the center of the planet in the Antarctic, and there was a secret race to find it. High jump is still today at the mercy of the internet on whether or not it was a legit project or a secretly funded scientific expedition. Google it up. It's pretty wild and very real. Number 4. Ouija boards. Popularized by teens in the 1970s, the Ouija board has earned its reputation over the years. Created almost 100 years before its heightened popularity, the year is 1891, and as the first ads started to appear in papers claiming, quote, Ouija, the wonderful talking board, the title from a Pittsburgh toy and novelty shop. The first paper described it as a magical game that answered questions about the past, present, and future with marvelous accuracy. A flat board with the letters of the alphabet configured in 2 semicircles. Above, the numbers 0 through 9, the words yes and no in the upper corners, goodbye at the bottom. No batteries included nor needed. Now, the origins are pretty messy, and it's hard to kind of pinpoint who or what inspired these early attempts at this game. It kind of just appeared on shelves. No, literally. The Kennard Novelty Company exclusively made and marketed these talking boards, and apparently the lore goes that one of the designer's sisters was a medium and asked the board what it would like to be called. It responded, Ouija, followed by, good luck. Well, that's absolutely terrifying. At least good sportsmanship though, right? Yeah, I've never played with one of these, nor will I ever. That's a no-brainer for me, 100%. Number 3, the Philadelphia experiment. I pray that this one is a hoax because there's a lot of documents that relate to this subject around the time that don't really seem to add up. The Philadelphia experiment was an alleged event witnessed by Carl Allen and the United States Navy shipyard in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania in October 1943. Allen describes an experiment where the US Navy attempted to render itself invisible, cloaking the destroyer the USS Eldridge, and the bizarre scientific results that followed. On Allen's account, the destroyer successfully made itself invisible, but the ship inexplicably teleported to Norfolk, Virginia for several minutes and then reappeared back in Philly. Sounds pretty cool, right? So what's the catch? The ship's crew was supposed to have suffered various side effects including insanity, intangibility, and being frozen in place. Like people stuck in the walls and stuff. Stuck in the floors like this is a scene from Jumanji. Terrifying. The story surfaced in the late 1950s when Allen sent a book full of handwritten letters referring to the experiment to a US Navy research organization. The US Navy maintains that there has been no such experiment ever conducted and that the details are highly exaggerated and falsified. Dude, I hope so, because this is horrifying. Number 2. Wow. In a 1959 paper, Cornell University physicists speculated that if an extraterrestrial civilization was attempting to communicate with us using radio signals, that they might use a frequency of 1420 megahertz, which is naturally emitted by hydrogen, the most common element in the universe. In 1973, Ohio State University assigned the Big Ear to the scientific search for extraterrestrial intelligence. 1977, Jerry Amon, a SETI volunteer astronomer, was analyzing data and spots a series of signal intensities and frequencies that left him and his colleagues astonished. The WOW signal was the first signal detected from Earth. The signal came from the direction of the constellation Sagittarius. Amon discovered the anomaly. Impressed by the result, on the computer printout he circled 6EQUJ5 and wrote 3 letters beside it. Wow, leading to the event's famous name. The signal lasted for a full 72 seconds, and it remains today as the strongest candidate for an ET radio transmission ever detected. And number 1, of course, the USS Cyclops. Launched in May of 1910, the USS Cyclops was a Protus-class collier built for the United States Navy, a huge cargo ship designed for transporting coal. In 1918, the cursed vessel left Rio de Janeiro, heading for Barbados, right around a certain dangerous triangle. Unfortunately, the Voyager was never to be seen again. Named Cyclops after a race of giants from Greek mythology, she was huge and heavy, unmissable by the naked eye. So what happened to her? The loss of the ship and crew still remains the single largest loss of life at sea the United States Navy has ever experienced. Funny thing is, It went right through the Bermuda Triangle, a place where magnetic compasses stop working, ships are never heard from again, and of course the military still refuses to operate and research. Skeptics are quick to say aliens and black holes, but the magnetism surrounding the Bermuda Triangle cases might be a logical explanation. I think they still owe us some explanations, no? I'm looking at you, Freedom of Information Act.
Starting off this list in our number 10 spot, we have the eruption of Mount St. Helens. Mount St. Helens is a stratovolcano located in Skamania County, Washington. This volcano is best known for its huge and disastrous eruption on May 18, 1980. This photograph comes from photographer Robert Landsberg, who of course was in the area at the time of the eruption. Before the eruption, he had visited the area in order to photograph and document all of the changes that were happening. On May 18th, he was within a few miles of the volcano when it erupted. Since he unfortunately was located so close to the explosion, he knew he would be unable to escape this disaster, so instead of focusing on the impossible, he focused on taking as many pictures as possible. Robert was obviously incredibly brave and dedicated, but also very smart. After snapping as many photos as he could, including this one, he then secured his camera in his backpack and covered his backpack with his body. He knew he was unlikely to survive, but wanted to make sure that these photos did. His body was found 17 days later with his backpack still underneath him. His film was of course developed and has provided geologists with some really valuable insights with his close documentation of the eruption. In our number 9 spot today, we have the core. This photo shows a physicist named Harold Agnew, and while this looks like a relatively normal, non-threatening photo, what he has in his hand is truly devastating. Harold is holding the nuclear core of what was nicknamed the Fat Man atomic bomb. This means that Harold is holding the nuclear core of the atomic bomb that was later dropped on Nagasaki in 1945. The immediate blast, of course, took many lives, but so did the long-term effects of the bomb, like radiation illness and that sort of thing. It's crazy to look at a photo like this because it seems just so perfectly normal when he literally has a life-changing, world-ending device in the palm of his hand. Also, I don't think I could ever hold something like that. Not only would I just not want to, but I would just be so afraid that something was gonna go wrong. In our number 8 spot today, we have the Challenger crew. This is a photo that was taken of the clearly very excited Challenger crew as they walked down the ramp ready to head off on their mission. The crew even included 37-year-old Krista McAuliffe, who was a high school social studies teacher. She had won a spot on this mission through a program with NASA called the Teacher in Space program, and she had trained diligently for months in order to be the first non-military person in space. On January 28, 1986, the Challenger mission proved to be fatal just 73 seconds after liftoff. 2 rubber O-rings failed because of the cold temperatures of the morning, and on live television, the world watched as the spacecraft broke apart and plunged into the ocean, sadly taking the lives of everyone on board. It is an absolutely tragic event made even more chilling by this final photo. In our number 7 spot today, we have the plague. This photo comes from the 19th century, from the 3rd plague pandemic. This was the first time that the plague had spread to all 5 continents. While we now know something about what that might have been like, what we haven't had to endure are the doctors that dressed like this. This is a photo of the outfits and masks that plague doctors wore when they would come to your house to treat or diagnose you. The long beak-like noses of the masks are very creepy, but they were used to hold herbs and other nicely scented things because they believed that it would help ward off the bad air, which at the time is what they thought was causing the sickness. A pandemic certainly is bad enough. Thankfully, our doctors and nurses are just sticking to scrubs. In our number 6 spot today, we have the elephant's foot. This photo looks like it's just a big lump of nothing, but it's called an elephant's foot. Don't worry, at first I was a little worried too, but it has nothing to do with elephants and is only named that because of its appearance. This lump was actually created from the Chernobyl nuclear meltdown, and it is just a mass of corium and other materials that were in the core of the reactor. This elephant's foot was located in the steam distribution corridor, which is under what's left of the reactor. While this mass doesn't produce as much radiation as it did before, it does still, to this day, produce a deadly amount. It is said that if you stood in front of it for just 300 seconds, that would be enough to get a lethal dose of radiation. It's kind of crazy that even though they knew this, they were still standing there taking pictures of it, but I'm just glad because we all now get to see it, and it gives us just a little more insight into what exactly happened that day. In our number 5 spot today, we have Mount Pinatubo. This is a photo that is showing Mount Pinatubo, which is located in the Philippines, on June 15th, 1991. That is the day that this volcano erupted into what would be the second largest volcanic eruption of the 20th century. Certainly impressive, also extremely terrifying. This photo shows the pyroclastic flow full of hot gas and rock being flung into the air. Eruptive activity in the volcano first started on April 2nd of that year, which prompted researchers to set up seismographs in the area. By June, the volcano was having a group of progressively shallower eruptions before, on June 12th, the volcano had its first spectacular eruption, which sent an ash column 19 kilometers up into the atmosphere. After more highly gas-charged magma reached the surface on June 15th, the volcano once again exploded, this time sending the cloud of ash 40 kilometers up into the atmosphere. Volcanic ash and pumice blanketed the surrounding area, and pyroclastic flows filled what were once deep valleys with fresh volcanic deposits. It was truly magnificent and extremely powerful, and this photo shows just that. In our number 4 spot today, we have the Pioneer's Defense. This photo is known as the Pioneer's Defense, and man, does it ever look creepy. This photo comes from 1937 and it was taken by a Russian photographer named Viktor Bulla. This photo takes place in the Leningrad area, which is now known as St. Petersburg, which is the second largest city in Russia. The people in this photo were part of a group that was the 1930s Russian equivalent of our Boy Scouts, and it was called the Young Pioneers. The masks on their faces leave a very eerie feeling, and for a fair reason. These people were doing a military preparation drill, which is the reason for the gas mask. This photo was taken during a time where the country was under the dictatorship of Joseph Stalin, and the residents were constantly unsure of what was going to happen. The country was already seeing death, and people were already frightened just a few years before the start of World War II. In our number 3 spot today, we have the lipstick. This is a photo that comes to us from December 10th, 1945. If looking at this image gives you a shudder down your spine, that absolutely makes sense, as it was written by a terrible person known as the Lipstick Killer. This photo is an image of a note he left written on the wall at one of his crime scenes. The photo comes from the apartment of Frances Brown, as just before he wrote this message, he took her life. After this message was left, he ended up taking the life of one other person before he was finally caught by police 6 months later. The message scrawled in the photo reads, quote, "For heaven's sake, catch me before I kill more. I cannot control myself." It is an absolutely chilling note with a horrifying backstory. In our number 2 spot today, we have the acid drum. This photo comes to us from inside the house of another terrible person, the serial killer Jeffrey Dahmer, made very famous recently. This photo was taken from the inside of his home after he was found out and caught by authorities. Before his arrest, he was sadly able to take the lives of 17 different people. Although this photo might look kind of plain, the horrors are plentiful. This shot shows a drum full of acid that was located inside of his home. Probably don't really need to tell you what it was used for. I can't imagine the horrors investigators saw when they entered his home, and even previous to that as they investigated his crimes. Thankfully, Jeffrey was caught, and in 1992 he was sentenced to life in prison, but just 2 years later he was killed by a fellow prison inmate. In our number 1 spot today, we have the Dyatlov Pass incident. If you have never heard of the Dyatlov Pass incident, you better buckle in because it is so terrifying. This photo was taken in February of 1959 as 9 young Soviet hikers sent out to trek through the Ural Mountains. They had set up a camp, and sometime during the night, something happened that made them cut their way out of the tent and all flee the site. Leaving in such a rush, they were of course underdressed for the bitterly cold weather, and 6 of them ended up passing away from hypothermia, which is extremely tragic. The other 3, however, is where this story takes an even more frightening turn. Like I mentioned before, no one knows why they fled the tent in the first place, and the last 3 hikers were found passed away with severe signs of physical trauma that no one agreed on what had caused it. In 2019, the investigation was reopened, and just last year there was a conclusion that a kind of avalanche called a slab avalanche was the cause for these injuries. Before you come at me in the comments, I know that not everyone is convinced that's what happened, and I don't blame you. It's really strange. So, down below in the comments, let me know what you think. Let's solve this mystery once and for all together in the YouTube comments.